Um, okay, so we're gonna get started. So I want to welcome everyone to this LinkedIn webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. This session is being recorded. Um, just some logistics. If you do have questions, you can type them into the Q&A, and every few minutes, Chaim, our presenter, is going to kind of check in with me and to make sure he's answering the questions, and I could tell him what questions there are. And that leads me to introducing our speaker. So I just want to introduce Chaim Shapiro. He's the Director of Career Services at Toro, and he gives LinkedIn trainings and webinars nationally. And we're really excited that he was able to switch to this format for us. So I'm going to take myself off video and hand it over to you, Chaim.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's really great to be back. Hopefully next year I'll be able to come back in person to campus again. Obviously these are very crazy times, and I hope everybody is doing and feeling well. At this point, you should be able to see my LinkedIn screen, but before we get to that, I want to go through some brief introductory remarks just about what we're going to talk about. So the real goal here is for this to be about an hour. We're going to talk about how to create a winning LinkedIn profile, how to make sure your profile stands out to recruiters. I'm going to show you specifically how to make sure your skills section is specifically dedicated and geared towards the kinds of skills that people are looking for in your particular profession. And we're going to go through alumni, some job searches, and hopefully, if we have time, some content searches as well. Now, my philosophy on this is I want you to be asking questions throughout, just as if I was there in person. I'm going to be asking Jessica every 3, 4, 5 minutes to read some of the Q&A questions to me. So if there are any questions you have along the way, please, please, please stop, put it in the Q&A. We'll try to do our best to answer it during the live session. Worst case scenario with the Q&A, those questions do stay there, so we'll be able to answer them via email or in other ways coming forward. Now, a couple of just brief before I start getting into the profile itself, to talk a little bit about the evolution of LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn has changed drastically in the last 3 or 4 years. Microsoft took over LinkedIn, and also I think because really we had pretty close, almost 100% employment in the United States, we really didn't have a need for a job search board on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn moved much more into a B2B, business-to-business kind of platform. Now, I think because of Corona and because of the changes and the fact that there are people looking for jobs now, they're starting to move back into the job search arena. And I think that's very important. It's obviously the right time for it. A couple of things that give me that indication. They just redid this toolbar up here. They've given some new skills and rights to people. So if you're part of, for example, an alumni group for purchase, if there is such a group on LinkedIn, you could actually send unlimited numbers of messages to people via that group. And there are a couple of changes to how they have your featured information, the things that give me the indication that they are looking towards making it much more of a job search platform going forward. So the first thing that I do want to do, though, is talk to you about how to make sure you can set up your profile so that you're actually setting yourself up for success, that recruiters potentially find it, and you are able to make sure that you have what I call a winning LinkedIn profile. Now, the edit mode for your LinkedIn profile is going to be right here. There's a little me button right over here. If you click on that and then click on view profile, that's going to take you into the edit mode of your profile. Now, you don't have to worry about this. Nobody else sees this except for you, and nobody else has access to this except for you. This is your specific edit mode on your particular profile. And this is where you'll be able to make all the kinds of changes you need to do in order to make sure that your profile stands out to people. The first place I want to start is probably the most important part of LinkedIn. One of the general philosophies in social media, and this also used to be true when we talked about, say, the New York Times, you have above the fold and a below the fold. Below the newspaper was people could see the front in the box. Anything below it, you probably lost about 50% of your audience. So the higher up something is on your LinkedIn profile, the more important it is because more people are likely to see it. You want to make sure to utilize all of these particular things to your advantage. So the first thing I'm going to do is just some changes, show you how to make changes to the intro portion of your LinkedIn profile. That's that little button right over here, this little pencil. I'm going to click on that. That's going to take me into the edit mode. I'll get to this background photo in a minute, but I want to focus on what I call the LinkedIn triumvirate. I call this the LinkedIn triumvirate because these are the 3 most important components of your LinkedIn profile. wherever you show up on LinkedIn, whether it's searches or emails or connection requests, things that show up with you are going to be your picture, your name, and this right here, your LinkedIn headline. So it's very important to make sure you maximize those three. Those are the three most important parts of your profile. Now, when it comes to your picture, you want your picture to be a professional headshot photograph. Mistakes that I see all the time, people put family pictures. They had a sort of a semi-professional picture at a wedding where they have somebody, with an arm around them, that's sort of disembodied, that's hanging over their shoulder. Things like that are things you want to avoid. You want to try to get a professional headshot photo if you can. Worst case scenario, you want to get a headshot photo against, let's say, a white background. So you're able to actually make sure that people see you. And when people see you on your LinkedIn profile, they're much more likely to relate to you. You will see here that on mine here, here's the edit mode on this. My picture is a little bit off center, and also here I have a gray background. That's because one of the latest fads in LinkedIn right now is actually having off center and gray backgrounds. That's sort of what the cool kids on LinkedIn are doing. It doesn't have to be that, but you definitely want the professional headshot photo. Question I always get, what should I be wearing in this photo? I think you should be wearing the kind of clothing you'll be wearing if you're going to a networking event in your profession. So that's going to look very different if you're looking to work at a Goldman Sachs versus a Google, or potentially in acting, because what you'll be wearing at those networking events will be very, very different. For me, suit and tie makes sense. For a lot of other people, just a t-shirt even potentially can make sense if that's the kind of thing they're looking to do. You can drag and reposition photos if you want, change, straighten, do all sorts of funky things to make sure the picture looks great. One thing to note is these pictures are now circles as opposed to before when it was a square. Now, moving on down here, name. This seems relatively simple, but isn't necessarily. So I think it's very important to make sure you use your first and last name, even though if your name is Chaim, which is an unusual name. I see a lot of people ask me, should I use a nickname? I advise against that. I think your best bet is using your actual legal name and your first name and your last name. In the past, I used to have my degree up here, master's in education afterwards. I advise people against doing that now because it is the potential to skew search results and the new search features that LinkedIn has added. So I think just the first name, last name makes sense. You can actually add a former name if you have a name that after you get married, you can add that very simply there as well. And I have seen some people who have a very popular nickname and they'll add that former name as their nickname. The nickname is that former name, which I think makes some sense in terms of doing that, because if people don't know you as something else, it can make sense to include that. Now, the last thing I want to highlight before we get into the first round of questions is this right here, your LinkedIn headline. Your LinkedIn headline is the most valuable real estate on LinkedIn because what it does is it gives me an opportunity to see who you are. If I see nothing else besides your name and your picture, why do I want to connect with you? What is it about you that sells you to me that I want to talk to you or look or find out more about you? So these kinds of things shouldn't be student at purchase. And that's very important. That's not the selling point that you want to be pointing out. This needs to be dedicated or aspiring visual arts professional, and then you could put some lines or these little dashes here, skilled in X, Y, and Z, skilled in media relations, whatever it happens to be, and put things that really, really sell you that if a recruiter were able to see it or anybody were able to see it, they say, that's the kind of person that I'd want to be connecting with and personally potentially want to see for a particular job. Hopefully you've spoken about things called the elevator pitch that we normally give if you meet somebody in an elevator or in general at networking events. This really is your LinkedIn elevator pitch. This is your opportunity to really, really sell you to the people who have the opportunity to decide whether to look at your profile or not. I think it is very, very important. You only have 130 characters here to maximize those 130 characters with information that really, really sells you. And with that, I want to move to Jessica to see if there are any questions at this point.
Hi, Chaim. Right now, we just have one question, which is, how does having your degree at the end of your name skew the search results?
That's a great question. Because when people put in the search field, my name, Chaim Shapiro, and this is less of an issue with the name of Chaim Shapiro, which is going to get 10, maybe 12 hits on 10. But if you have a much more common name, if they put in the name and you have 200 names come up, and the MED afterwards could potentially skew who they find. Does that make sense? If we're doing a search for the name and you have something after that, I see people put in, try to a little bit of a solve for themselves, productivity guru or whatever it happens to be. So if someone's searching for your name and you put that in there, it has the ability to skew it. And the search, you might not show up in the searches for people who are actually searching for you specifically.
And then
Does that make sense?
yes. And then I think
Questions at this moment?
sorry, I'm just looking at some. So I think, right. So it's not because there's a negative connotation. It really,
No,
it's
it's
just
not a
not
negative
it's not the
connotation at
place
all.
to
I used
put
to
it.
have it. Just
Right.
LinkedIn changed their search algorithm. And I think with the new search algorithm, you really hurt yourself by including that.
So another question is, for our headline, will we put an example that I'm a purchase student in progress and what major is in progress?
Great question. I think you can't put that you're a purchase student, but the question you need to ask yourself, what is the main selling point that you have? Is it the fact that you're a student of purchase, or the fact that you have a particular set of skills that will make you valuable potentially for people to hire? So for most students, and I tell Turo students this as well, the fact that you're a Turo is something we can highlight later in the profile. This is where you need to tell me what you're going to bring to the table that really, really hits me between the eyes and tells me, oh, you know what, I need to pay attention to her because she's a visual arts major who really has skills in digital marketing or whatever it happens to be that really puts you above and beyond some other people in that particular profession.
That's great. And then just two more questions for right now, and then
Sure.
we'll get to any other questions after. Can you just repeat the amount of characters that you have for the
About
headline?
150 characters.
130?
Limited, and you want to make sure to put your best stuff first. Like anything else, put your best stuff at the beginning, because again, the further along the line you read, as silly as it sounds, the further along the line you read, the less likely people are to read it.
And
Read
this
the
is,
best stuff always.
oh, I'm so sorry. And then, so somebody was just asking, is it unprofessional or limiting to identify your specific interest on your page? Example, you want to work for dance. Should I say this or keep myself open? I don't know if this is something you may be getting to a little bit later.
Yeah, well, so I think it depends. When you talk about aspiring dance professional, the question is if you're limiting yourself because you're also potentially interested in other fields. That's one question, and that's an interesting question, and it's very similar to what happens on resume. I don't think I would put it here if it limits you, because this should be more broad to get as many people to click on your profile as possible. Okay, I'm going to move on here just to make sure we keep matriculating our way through the LinkedIn profile. Now up here is your background image. If you don't have this set specifically, it's going to be a blue background, which you do not want to have. You want to have something on here that really helps promote your brand. You'll see here, I try to tell people that I can give a great LinkedIn workshop. What sells me better than the fact that seeing me in front of a crowd giving a LinkedIn workshop? This gentleman right here, this lady right here, sell me better than anything else I can do to promote myself, because you can see they're very interested and engaged in the process. So, for example, if you do dance production, if you have a picture of the dance production or of yourself in a production, those kinds of things can be very valuable up there. I've seen economic students put things that are economic related, just in terms of Bull on Wall Street or something like that. But the idea is when they see this background image, they really should say, thank you, something this helps me promote who you are. It gives me a better idea of who you are. Now, just to move a little bit further down here, I keep show education in my intro. Actually means that if somebody's looking at my LinkedIn profile at the top, they'll see that I went to the University of California, Riverside. I think that's very important to make sure that is clicked for college students. And right down here is one of the changes that LinkedIn just put in, that I think is another indication that they are really moving towards the idea of making this more of a job search platform. You see here, it says New York City metropolitan area. It used to be Greater New York City area, but it made me change that. And the reason I think that is because when people do searches, recruiters do searches, they're looking for people in certain areas, and they're going to be excluding people who don't fit their specific criteria for what they're looking for. So if I had my actual home city, which is here, West Hempstead, which is my zip code, potentially there could be people who are looking for people who live closer to New York City who wouldn't consider my profile for a job because they're like, oh, well, that's a little bit of a long commute. We wouldn't want to have somebody who has that long of a commute come in and do that. So I think it is better to go with a bigger metropolitan area, unless you're specifically looking for something out in Westchester, wherever it happens to be. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, the save button. I didn't make any changes, so that should be fine. And we're going to keep moving our way through the profile here. The next thing is your contact info. That's down over here. By the way, you see University of California, Riverside right here. That's because I checked that as showing my education. Now, if I go to my contact info and I have to click on contact info, this is going to take me with this little pencil to the edit mode on my contact information. Now, if you have a personal website, I think a lot of you probably do have portfolios, this is where you would include that information. But let me show you a little trick here to make sure people know where you're sending them with your actual website. If I click add a website here, you see here, if I go to portfolio, there's no description here. You see, I have book LinkedIn workshops, which tells people what happens if they go to my website. That doesn't show up unless you choose the other button. So even if you're putting in your portfolio, it might make sense to put your URL and say, this is my portfolio that has a list of all of my graphic design projects and whatever it happens to be. That gives people a better idea of where you're sending them. So I do recommend doing that. I'm just going to remove this because I'm not actually keeping this here. You see, I do have my phone number here. People are mixed about whether you should or shouldn't include this because, again, you get some spam calls. My philosophy is, because I'm so out there anyway, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I get spam calls anyway, but some people want to put it there. Other people use a Google phone number there, so they don't have to worry so much about people capturing their phone information. And my email address is set. You could actually set multiple email addresses in your LinkedIn settings. I have my Twitter account, which is professional as well, associated with this, because for a lot of people, that's a great engagement opportunity. And one more that's a little bit more controversial is I do have my birthday in here. And the reason I do that is because I get a lot of messages from people on July 19th, and it's a great engagement opportunity for me to send them a thank you and engage with them. Some people advise against doing this because sometimes your birthday can actually be some of the security challenges for some accounts. So I don't include the birth year, just the birthday, but that's one of those things I think people need to decide on their own. And I think we're going to stop and ask, are there any questions about adding information or making changes to your contact information?
Oh, hi. So we have just one kind of question from before that came in after, which is just, it was an
Sure.
example of a headline.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to know, would this be a good example? So proactive project manager with a mind for details, logistics, and customer service. They asked, would that be an appropriate headline?
I think that's a good start. And I would say that after that, you could put a line or something else, and even include more information there. But I think that is a good start. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Because the idea is if you have real estate, it's not a bad idea to use more of it. Okay.
And then just
Next,
one
I
more
want to show
quick
you
question.
another question.
Just one more, and then we'll save
Oh,
more
please.
for.
Yes, please.
So does LinkedIn send your contacts an alert when you make a change to your profile?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to that when I show you the jobs, because there's a way to shut that off, which is what I do advise people do, because otherwise it sends a message out every time you make a little tinkering change to it, which can get very, very annoying. I'm going to show you that in hopefully about 10 minutes. So that's a great
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very soon. Now I want you to watch this very carefully because it's a little bit confusing, because I want to make sure to set your LinkedIn URL so that it's personalized to you. Let me just scroll up here to this over here. Very confusing. Edit public profile URL. This is going to take me to another page. When I click on this, you see here, I have the ability right here of this little pencil to change the URL. Now, the default is linkedin.com/in. It was Chaim-Shapiro with a number of letters and numbers after it. And what I advise people to do is actually go in here and actually change that and put their first name, last name. Now, if you have trouble getting your first name, last name, because it's a more popular name, you can't put a dash between the Chaim and the Shapiro, a dash after the Shapiro. This could be where the master's in education would make sense, the MED. For example, if Chaim Shapiro was taken, I would definitely include MED, CPA, whatever it happened to be after that. But get as close to your name as you can. And what I do with this, because it's a professional URL, I use this as the signature line in all of my emails. So when I send an email to somebody, if they are specifically interested in connecting and finding out more, they have the opportunity to click on that on my email. And if they want to check it out, they can. Now, this page here also, by the way, if somebody looks up your LinkedIn profile, they're not actually logged into LinkedIn. So if I'm on Google and I'm looking up Chaim Shapiro and my LinkedIn page comes in, and I'm not logged into LinkedIn, this is the page they see. You see what I did there with that website? See how this description is right there? People see that. So that's another good example of how that works. But over here, you can control what is on this page. Now, I have my profile photo available for everybody. I just want to show you a couple of things down here, because one of the things you can do is you can change what content is shown over here. So if I want to take out my summary, which is really the about section right now, watch what happens when I click this off. that's going to disappear right away from that, and people will go right to my articles and activity, and I can put that back. It's worthwhile to go through this and make sure that you're really highlighting the right stuff when you're utilizing the parts on this page, because there are a lot of people who do searches and will find your LinkedIn profile and are not logged into LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main LinkedIn page. Just click out of it so we didn't make any changes. And I want to show you job opportunities, open to job opportunities, which is also a change LinkedIn recently made. And after that, we'll stop for questions again. So one of the things you can do, and if you don't see this on your profile, if you go to add profile section, you'll be able to add that, is you can actually put down that you're open to job opportunities. And you'll see here, I put down some of the job titles. I can add a title here, and the locations. Again, that matches the one that I had in my profile. I could add locations, and you could decide whether you want to have a full-time job, contract, part-time, internship, temporary. It's funny how they have remote here because pretty much everybody's remote now, but that'd be probably full-time remote. Plus, you have the opportunity to decide whether that's going to be visible only to recruiters, only people who have a recruiting platform on LinkedIn that's paid for, or all LinkedIn members. Now, my philosophy on this is that I keep this only now because I want to use this as an example. One of the things that LinkedIn had prior to this was the opportunity to set how interested you are specifically in looking for a new position. And I was able to set that I'm not actually looking for a position, but I'm open to positions. And that way, if somebody, for example, would say, oh, well, Chaim Shapiro is a great guy. I'll offer him $1,000 a year to work for me. I'm open to that, but because I'm not looking for a job and they don't give you that opportunity anymore, I just utilize this for the opportunity to show students how to do this. So this is the kind of thing you definitely want to set it. Generally, if you're currently working at a place, LinkedIn claims that the recruiters at your particular company will not be able to see this if you choose only recruiters. However, that's only if they've done everything correctly on their profile and they're correctly set and using that particular company's recruiter platform. So you always have to potentially worry that someone may see this, and if it's potential that someone might get upset at you because you're looking for a job when you have one, you need to consider that when you're actually doing this. So they have this higher up on the LinkedIn profile now than they ever have in the past, but I think some of the changes they made to it really took away a lot of the value that it had, because I think the status of your job search is an important component to have to this. And Jessica, I want to stop for questions now.
Sure. Okay. So when, I guess when you were saying that you can put your email address in, somebody was asking, would you create a separate email for employers to reach you?
I don't think so. I think you should use the same one you have on your resume. Just have
That's
your professional email address, whether that's your SUNY purchase email address, which is professional, or preferably first name, last name at Gmail is always the best one to use.
that's great. Thank you. And then the next question was, does LinkedIn sell your contact info?
That's a great question. So LinkedIn claims they do not, but obviously there are people who are doing data mining on LinkedIn. So whenever you're connected to people, there's the opportunity that people are going to be seeking that information. Anything you put anywhere on social media by definition is public and in the public domain. So it's definitely possible that people will see that information and take it. And that's always a possibility. There's no way to really avoid that. And when you get the recruiter platform, when recruiters are actually looking, they have a much more robust search capability than normal free users have. So they're able to really find a lot of people and a lot of information. So I wouldn't put anything too personal, but yeah, there's definitely a strong possibility that people will find your information. So the small thing here is if you provide services, this usually doesn't apply so much to college students, it's more for professionals. But you see here that I write some of the other services that I provide as a professional. And this is the kind of thing I just keep in general because it lets people know what I'm able to do for them in addition to just my regular job and things that I do. Okay, I'm going to move down a little further. And this is the About section. I want to show you something important change here. About and Featured used to be in the exact same box. About 3-4 weeks ago, LinkedIn changed this. It might still be rolling out where you're still connected, but they should change it within the next few months so that everybody has both the About and the Featured. The About section is your opportunity to put a little bit more information that you actually could include in your LinkedIn headline. So you see here, I have a lot more information here about myself that I couldn't fit there. I include my email and my website here as well. The reason I include my email is if somebody's looking for my profile and I want to make sure that they're not connected with me, they can't see it, I want to make sure they can send me an email without having to pay for it. And LinkedIn can charge you for what's called an in-mail if you're not connected. And some other general information here. The reason I keep this here is because it is highly searchable and shows up in searches, especially the ones that recruiters use. So it is important to include a lot of information here. But when we talked before about how people look above and below the fold in the New York Times, but also on LinkedIn, I like to say nobody likes Seymour. And the reason I mean that is once you hit the see more button and the stuff that shows up below this, you've lost 99% of the people who are going to be looking at your profile. So what's above that is the most important information, but definitely important to include things underneath it as well, because that can show up in searches. And the people who are really, really interested in you are going to be able to look and see that as well. Now, this change over here to the featured section is something that I really, really like, because I think it gives people an opportunity to really sell themselves to recruiters in a way they weren't able to do before. You're actually able to add here, it could be, and we'll show you the add button, posts, things you posted, articles, links, and media. So you could put your portfolio up here. This is a LinkedIn student guide that I created, and people can have access to that directly on their board. I have these hosted on something called SlideShare, which is owned by LinkedIn. I like to have it there just because LinkedIn and SlideShare play very nicely, because they're actually owned by the same company. But it's a great way to put your information out there. People are very visual. So having this visual cues here helps sell you in a great possible way. And here's something I love to do as well. I have my actual resume hosted on SlideShare. And this way people can actually see that it looks like a resume. They can click on it. If they click view, which I'm not going to do now because it'll take me to SlideShare, they can actually download my resume onto their desktop. So if they wanted to send it to other people, they can do that. Just as a note here, you can't see it here, but at the top of this resume, I do not have my address. I just have my name, my email address, and my LinkedIn profile. And the reason for that, obviously, is you don't generally want to put your address out there in the public domain where people can find it and actually show up at your house. Okay, does that make sense?
Chaim, can I ask a quick question? So we actually had a question about that, was
Absolutely.
do we attach our resume? So would you suggest, so if they wanted their resume out there, that would be how to do it?
I think that's probably the best place for actually having your resume up there, because it's a great place to put it. And you can actually move these things around. So if you want to have your resume first, for example, you just need to go here, click, pull this up, and I didn't get it all the way up, but I get it all the way up there. And I click done, you'll see it'll switch it to the second one. So you can move those around and include whichever information is the most important. But I do think that is a good place to have it, and have it hosted on a place like SlideShare where people can actually download it specifically, because there are some people who aren't really computer savvy or LinkedIn savvy, and this is your opportunity to make sure that they can get a digital copy of your resume very, very easily. It says Chaim Shapiro Resume 2020, so people know what they're looking at when they click on it. Any other questions about that?
There are some other questions coming in. I don't know if you want me to ask now or you want to get to them.
Sure, if you have a couple questions that are relevant now, yeah.
So I mean, I think it's just kind of some of the things you've been talking about. I will just say one thing. Rachel, hi, who works in our office, asked, how did you get the section to add or remove? Rachel, if you can just type in what section it was, then we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah, profile section, this one right here.
Let's see. I'm looking down in my chat. I don't know if
that
was
referring to this. Usually it stays towards when you're in the edit mode, it stays towards the top of your profile right over here, so you can get to it at any time. You should be able to.
Okay. So somebody had asked if you're going to, can you go over the notifications from your profile being set to your network?
Oh, the question we had before about whether the changes are sent to your network?
Oh, that must have been it. Okay. That's
actually question. The next thing that I'm actually going to be getting to here. Because, well, actually, another thing here, activity shows up much more prominently in your profile than it ever did before. So when you're actually connecting, and this might answer that question as well, if you're actually engaging with people, there's a person I engage with today, here's something about another session I'm giving and other people I engage with, that shows up very, very high on your profile so people can see if you're engaged and make sure that you're engaging in things that are relevant to your professional field. If we have time at the end, we're going to go over a little bit more about that. But I want to show you the work experience. So this is where we get to the question about making the changes. So you see here, I work at Turo College, and I've been there, thank God, for a very, very long period of time. This is the edit mode here on Turo College. So I go in here. A couple of important things to point out, okay? The name of my office is the technical name. I prefer career services, but it is what it is. One of the most important things that you need to do is to make sure to sync your company name with what it actually has on LinkedIn. Now, watch what happens here. I remove the E on Turo College. You see that? That went blank, which means that I'm no longer synced to Turo College. And if people did alumni searches or searches for Turo College, they would not necessarily find me. So whatever company you're working for, make sure to click on that sync, because that sync will make sure that it's actually put in the right place. It's a very important component. Probably one of the most common mistakes I see here is people not syncing that. Now, there are some companies that aren't on there. That's something you have to deal with, but very, very important to do that. Now, here's that share with the network. If it's enabled, people will see that I made that little change, and I'll get all these messages. Congratulations for your new job at Turo, and I've been at Turo for 12 and a half years. So I usually advise people to keep this off unless they're making a significant change to a job, in which case it would make sense for people to be able to see that. Share with network, very simple. Just click this on, click save. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to share this right now, and that will take care of that for you. Okay. Also, a very important component here, if we scroll a little bit further down, is so a couple other positions I have. Here, what I did is, and this is a description, I'll show you what this looks like on the page in a moment. I just took this right off of my resume and cut and paste. LinkedIn does not actually have a feature that allows you to use bullets. So I just cut and paste the bullets there, which I like better. I think LinkedIn should move to that, but they don't actually currently have that. I think it's important to put the same information you put on your resume, describing what you did with the power verbs right there in the profile as well. And let me just see here. You also have the opportunity to include some rich media content. This isn't as valuable as it was 4 weeks ago when you didn't have the featured section, because this stuff generally goes in the featured section now, but I have a couple other workshop presentations that I've given. Another important thing to note here, before I get to the questions, is because I've been at Turo for a number of years and I've had a number of different positions, you'll see here that Director of the Office for Student Success, Adjunct Instructor, and Assistant Director of Career Services. You see how it has this line here that shows the progression in the same profession, the same company. That's very important. That's something that's relatively new, about a year and a half on LinkedIn. Prior to that point, you actually couldn't do that. It had to look like two separate jobs. And if you've been working in one place for a while, it's a great idea to make sure that they see that. Now, the trick here is to make sure that these dates line up. You see here that I started this in July 2016. If I did not end, where did we go here? Went a little too far. If I did not end this in July 2016, it would have cut this off because it would look like it's two separate positions. Make sure to line that information up. And this is just some other business that I have. And I actually put my previous jobs up here as well, because from my perspective, if somebody's really, really interested in my LinkedIn profile, let them find out more about me. Why not? And this is their opportunity to find out what I've done in all those other jobs. Okay? This is my education section here. For you, you want to make sure to sync this with SUNY Purchase. Same kind of idea over here, where it's actually synced with UCR. You want to make sure it's synced with the SUNY Purchase in there, and that should sync it for you. Once you get that, let's just make sure that works. There you go. If you clicked on that, that would put it on. Again, I'm not going to do that because I don't go to Purchase, unfortunately. That'll allow you to do that. And by the way, if you go to multiple schools, I don't know if any of you are college basketball fans, but about 2 years ago, my Loyola Ramblers were in the Final Four of the NBA of the NCAA tournament. And what I actually did then is actually move Loyola up here, because what that does is up here at the top, it put Loyola first, which was more of a brand thing when they were actually doing that run. Generally, I keep it to University of California, Riverside, because that is my most advanced degree that I was working on. So that's something you can do there. Any questions at this point, Jessica, or should we move into?
I mean, there are a number of questions. So first, I just want to remind
Sure.
everyone, when you're typing your questions, if you could just refer to what you're talking about, because some we may not get to till the end of the presentation. So I don't know, Chaim, if you want me to read a couple, or if you want to kind of
I
pull
think
them.
read a couple, because I want to make sure we keep on
Okay.
pace.
So somebody was asking, how would you list freelance work, gigs such as videography or photography as part of your past job
Absolutely.
experience?
I would list that here under your own company, and I would go up over here, providing services, and set up providing services to provide those freelance services. Yes, absolutely. I would definitely highlight that.
That's great. And then somebody asked, do you recommend keeping the job preferences only viewable to recruiters?
So look, it depends where you are. I think, for most people, I don't think it's a problem. The only reason to do that is if you're concerned that Turo will like, oh, Chaim, why are you looking for another job? So that's why and I'm not looking for another job, but that's generally when people do that. If you're looking for a job, especially now, it used to be a little bit of a stigma attached to being in a job search when there's almost 100% employment. I don't think that really exists now because of the coronavirus. So I don't see any reason to keep that unless you really need to hide it from people who might use it against you. Okay? Now I want to get into skills and endorsements here. Very, very important to make sure that you list the skills that are relevant to you. This is highly searchable, and I can guarantee you the people who are doing recruitment are looking at these skills and looking for people with the specific skills that you have. A couple of things here. You'll see here I have 3 skills listed at the top. Then I have show more. Again, nobody likes show more. Very few people are clicking on this and seeing the skills below there. They show up in search rankings 100%, but very few people are seeing that. So what I want to make sure to do is go to this little pencil. I want to make sure my top 3 skills are pinned here. See how these are pinned? That's what keeps them there at the top. If I were to come down and say, you know something? Career development, public speaking isn't as important to me. Let me unpin that because I can only put up 3 and put program development. I click save, you'll see that'll switch what happened here at the top. And now I have program development up there as opposed to the other one. Now, when it comes to your skills, there's very limited opportunity to move things around outside of those top 3. For example, I can move internet research up here above resume writing if I wanted. What I cannot do is move things between categories. So I want to move career counseling into tools and technology. It will not allow me to do that. Now, I think you have the opportunity to put up to 50 skills in here. You know what? If you have those skills and they're valuable skills, put them in there. These aren't skills like, that have the ability to be organized or dedicated. These are skills that really show advanced level kinds of things that you're able to do. Now, one of the most common questions I get at this point, having given this webinar so many times, is, well, how do I know which skills are the ones that are the most valuable to people in my particular profession? So I'm going to drop off of the profile just for a second here to give you an example of how to find the exact right skills to put into your profile. So I'm going to click out of this and go to the search here. And I'm going to go to Goldman Sachs company page. So this will be for our economics students out there. Now, this is the actual company page for Goldman Sachs. Now, look here on the left. If I go down here and I click on people, this is going to actually take me to a page where I'm actually able to search for particular people who are there. Now, I'm going to put in the greater New York City area, which is where we are located. I'm also going to click next one time here, what they studied, and put in economics, which is the major that Jessica and I spoke about right before this session. Now watch what happens if I move over here to what are they skilled at? And this actually shows me what they're skilled at. So I wouldn't worry so much about Excel and PowerPoint because everybody puts that because they have to. Financial modeling, public speaking, research, data analysis. These are the kinds of skills that if you have them, you want to be including in your profile, because these are the kinds of skills that people in New York who work at Goldman Sachs who have studied economics have on their profiles. Now, Goldman Sachs isn't the end-all be-all. Obviously, you can go around and try to put Merrill Lynch in there, other companies as well, to try to triangulate around the skills that are important. The other thing that I definitely put is you don't want to put skills that you're not actually skilled at. Just because someone at Goldman Sachs has that skill, if you don't have that particular skill, you really don't want to be putting it. And again, you can really go deep dive into this and put more information about where people are and what they studied and the schools they went to make it much more relevant to you in terms of targeting the skills that you're really, really interested in. So I think it's important that, again, you'd have to write them down because you're not able to add them from this board. But if you're able to find that on this particular board, you can then very simply go and say, okay, I need to add financial modeling to my profile. Just to go back here to view profile and into that skills section again. Pull down here and just show you how I would add that as soon as my thing stopped, my wheel stopped turning. And adding skill, I would just put in, there you go, financial, and modeling would be one of those choices. Then click add, and now I'd put that into my profile. Now, when it comes to endorsements, I think it's a good idea to get endorsements. Don't overdo it. I don't think they're worth that much. It's a good idea, because it shows you people when you're endorsed by people who are highly skilled at something. So getting endorsed for LinkedIn by Lindsay Pollack, for people who know her, is an excellent LinkedIn speaker and one of my mentors. So that was actually quite an honor, and it shows that up there. But endorsements just have a way of people to show that there actually is some connection, and they believe you have that skill. One of the challenges with it is people do it too easily. They just sort of send it out like, oh, okay, who cares? So I'll endorse you. And it doesn't have the same value, which is why the last thing I want to talk about on your profile, and before we get to questions, is actually getting recommendations on your profile. Recommendations are much, much more valuable than endorsements, because actually people need to go and write something here that actually says what they actually felt about you. So you see here, this is the last two that I have. There's no way to reorder these. So they're in the order of the last two that I want to have up here. But people actually are writing something specific about me and giving the other people information that really builds my credibility. Now, you don't want to have your college roommate on here. This is to be somebody who's a professor, somebody you work for, potentially somebody in career services, potentially could do that. But the idea is to have somebody worthwhile here who can really vouch for your particular skills, and they can give you specific information about what they're endorsing. So I just want to show you this here. You can ask for recommendations. If I wanted to after this session, I can go over here. I think I told Wendy that I was going to use her as an example today. But I can go over here and send Wendy a select relationship. I won't go through this whole thing here. But I can send her a request, hey, you want to endorse me for LinkedIn webinars after the session, and then send that to her, and she'll have the ability to do it. And this is the important thing I want to point out. Not that I'm worried about what Wendy will say, but nobody can post a recommendation on your site without your permission. You have full control over that. So you see here I have a pending recommendation. Why did I keep this pending? Look at this person here. Perfect liars for free tried to trick me into putting their recommendation onto my profile, which everyone would laugh at because it's obvious I didn't read who that person is. Now, this person cannot put that on my profile. I could ask them for a revision. There's no point in doing that because they're obviously trying to troll me. Or I could dismiss it. I keep it here just for the opportunity to show this particular thing to students. So great idea. Try to get between 3 and 5 recommendations if you can. I can't prove this, but I tend to believe that 3 to 5 recommendation kicks you up in the search rankings. So once you get more than 3 to 5, you're in a pretty good place. Again, from people of worth, not that your roommate isn't worth anything, but people that people will respect in terms of their opinion when it comes to you. Any questions, Jessica?
So we have about 13 questions. So I don't know if you want
great.
if you want to go on, and then we could answer them at the end.
Let's go a couple questions that are relevant to what we're talking about. And then
Yeah, so I'll ask for the more recent. So where do you go to ask for the recommendation request?
Yes, so right here. That's one way to do it, but potentially if you don't have recommendations, this is a little bit confusing. You don't actually have the recommendations already set. It can be a little bit harder to find. So what you would actually need to do is if you found the person's profile, let's see if we can get Wendy as an example. Wendy, and I'm on her profile right here as soon as it gets there. Okay, so under, I believe it's more here, I could ask her for a recommendation. And that's what you want to do if you don't have any recommendations on your file, because that actual screen that says ask for recommendation won't show up to that. You need to find the person you're actually interested in and then ask him or her to send the recommendation through that board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I'll ask a couple more questions and then we can get to the rest after. So somebody just said, please remind us of how one can get to the section to feature or pin the top 3 skills.
Okay, great. So under your skills, going down here, you have to click on this little pencil. Okay, you have to have added the skills first. So if the skills aren't on there, you can't pin them. But I can go through here now, and you have to unpin one if you have 3, because you can only have 3 at a time. But try to pin this now, it won't work. So if I were to unpin program development and want to go down here and put up resume writing, I could do that, and then make sure to click the save button or it won't move it to the top. Okay?
That's great. And then another recommendation question, somebody just asked, can I add a letter of recommendation I got through email on LinkedIn, or does it have to come through LinkedIn?
That actually be in your featured section, absolutely. And, oh, do you want to add it to the recommendations? You can actually ask them to recommend you and write the same information. Or I've seen people put that in their featured section. So I have a recommendation from Bill Gates. That's going up pretty high in something of significant reputation. That could be something you put in your featured section as the document. But I would ask them for a recommendation just to cut and paste it right into the recommendation there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to get into the alumni feature here a little bit. And I'm going into Purchase's actual university page here, because I think this is a great way to do some networking for people, because you want to find alumni who potentially can help you. So if I go to Purchase's page and I go click on the alumni button, you're going to see this is going to look a lot like what we saw under the people for jobs. And I can actually utilize this to find people who work at particular companies. So let's say I want to find people who work at NBC Universal, because I'm very interested in the job there. What I just done is actually come up with a list of people who went to SUNY Purchase who work at NBC Universal. And guess what? When I look at the list right down over here, I can go and say, oh, Benjamin's a production intern. Maybe he has connections with the internship team. I can send him a connection request. What you do not want to do, is click the connect button here. Do not do that, because that is going to send a generic connection request. You do not want to send a generic connection request. What I advise you do is to click on Benjamin's picture, and then over here, click connect, because that's going to give me the opportunity to write a personalized message to Benjamin saying, hi, Benjamin, I'm currently working on web development production at SUNY Purchase. I wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn, and then they send that invitation. It's personalized. Much more likely that Benjamin will accept it at that point. Plus, another important component of that is this syncs to your messages then. So whenever you send another message or any other interaction you have with Benjamin, he and you will be able to see that message you sent in your original connection request. So I think it is very important to personalize that as opposed to just sending that sort of standard message. Does that make sense? And you do this for other companies, and also you can see, just to show you the other fields here. So clear NBC Universal, click next, and I could see what they study, so I could actually find the film and cinema folks and the ones that work at NBC Universal or somewhere else. Those particular things. Again, it's a little bit of a different list. Any questions about the alumni feature?
Sorry, just checking. Nothing about the alumni feature.
Okay, so I want to go into jobs because a couple changes on here that I think make things a little bit easier for people to use. And let's see if we can. You see here, I did a search earlier today for performing arts on job search. That'll just be in the search tab right over here. Go back to that. Just put here. No, I did the search before, so I actually have it here. And I go to performing arts. And one of the things that I can do is, that's weird. I tried that before. Let's try the United States. And now all of a sudden it's not working. So let's see what we did here and what didn't work. We'll try something else. We'll try multimedia design. See, and Jessica can actually tell you that we actually practiced this beforehand and it was working.
It definitely was working, yes.
It was working before. This is whenever you do a live. There we go. Okay, here we go. So multimedia design did work. Okay, and this is a great example of this. So I could set a job alert for multimedia design in the United States. I could actually set a filter to make sure that's New York. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm afraid I'm going to lose this page. So it looks like it's being a little testy right now. But here's some valuable information here. NBC Sports Group. Look what happens right down over here. It shows me that I have 5 connections who currently work at NBC Universal. These are people potentially that I want to reach out to make this cold job application to warm job application. So I could actually send off a message saying, hey, I'm applying to the sports desk at NBC Universal. Can you put in a good word for me? And that would be through there. That shows you other people like that. Plus, you also see here, alumni from my institution are there as well. And potentially from my company, but there's nobody apparently that used to work at Shapiro that works there. So this is a great way to turn those cold leads and specifically into warm leads. Okay, I'm gonna move down the page here a little bit. Let's see if this one shows it here. Because one of the things they did here, there we go. So this is my work address, not my home address. You see here, it shows me how long the commute is by car, by train, and all these other things. And the reason I think this is important, remember I mentioned before that they changed it to greater New York City area, metropolitan area. I definitely do think that there are companies that are eliminating people from contention for jobs because they think the commute is too far. So you just want to be careful with that, and it's not a bad idea to check in any event how far these things are, because I sort of assumed this was in New York and it's not in Stamford, Connecticut. So you can see that it's a little bit of a long thing. One of the great things here also, you can say, I don't leave at 8 a.m. I leave at, let's say 7 a.m. And that could change the Google Maps in terms of the time. So, well, by 12 minutes. But in any event, the job search platform here is very robust. It is a great thing about it is that you're actually able to engage people who potentially are working at the company who could be that warm lead for you, as opposed to just what we call the spray and pray method, where you just send in that resume in general. What I usually advise people to do is to set up job alerts on Google and Indeed and all these other places. But once you find that job, go to that company page on LinkedIn, like we showed Goldman Sachs before, or go to the search here, because that's really where you're going to find the data that you really, really need. That's going to be helpful for you in terms of making sure and seeing who you know at those particular places. Just to use that example we had here before, going back to Goldman Sachs for economics people. And I'm very interested in the job here. If I go to jobs, I can see all the jobs there. And again, it takes me into more information about those people here on the side. Show me a little, oh, here it is, a little bit further down here. See more, it looks a little bit different here. Actually, it's not showing me as much, which is interesting. In the worst case scenario, I can go to people and I can see who I know there as well. And that could be people that went to my school potentially, or that have some similar connections. Okay, any questions about that?
Checking. So just more on the job side, and then just to let everyone know, we will get to everyone's questions by the end. So how do you set up job alerts?
Okay, so if I put in multimedia design by the job search, this button will allow me to do it. Just click this to on, and it will send you what you see here, email notifications daily and also on LinkedIn, or you can do it the weekly. You can set up more filters. So I'm not looking for multimedia design. I'm looking, now this is advanced premium stuff down here you could actually do. So if I'm looking for it in the New York City area, and I'm looking for that particular companies or particular industry, click apply, and that'll give you that information. And then you can set that job alert specific to that. See that changed up here? And you can set that job alert right over there. So you can set up a few job alerts. It's a good idea to do it because, things come up, you're not aware of it. I will say you do get a lot of duplicate kinds of job alerts when you have job alerts set up in multiple places. But in my mind, much better to have multiple opportunities and things come in than not seeing them in the first place. And again, this gives you the opportunity to see who your connections are at these particular places when you actually look up after that job search alert comes through.
Great.
Questions?
Let me. We still just the other questions we have to get to. No other questions about the job section.
So the last thing I really wanted to show you, or second to last thing I really wanted to show you here, was how to do content searches. Because people always ask me, well, how do I promote myself? How do I make sure that I'm putting information out that gets me noticed? And how do I engage with people on LinkedIn? So you'll see that I actually post on a regular basis. I showed you my activity before. And my activity shows me where I've been posting, what I've been commenting on, right here under activity. So I do this on a very, very regular basis, and I think you want to be posting on a semi-regular basis. But another important thing is commenting on other people's posts that really show your expertise in a particular area. Now, Jessica and I did a search for this right before here. Let me just see if this actually, visual arts is the one we did. And this will give me a content search. Click on this content tab right over here for people who use the term search visual arts in their posts. And if the same person comes up, scroll down just a little bit here. Here we have Mark, who is a keynote speaker and a body language expert when it comes to these things. And potentially, because of the search terms I use, Mark is the person that I want to engage with. So I would click on Mark's profile and see, is there something on his profile that gives me an opportunity to connect with him and show some connection to him? Can I just engage on his post? Do I have some kind of comment to make about what he said? That would be, I'll just show you on this one right here, commenting right here. put a comment right in there, say something, like it. It's an opportunity to get noticed by those particular people. So I think it's an important way to engage people. You're going to have to play around with the search terms because there are a lot of different search terms you can use. And depending on your profession, it might be certain ones come up much more frequently than others. So you have to play around with them till you get the right ones. And I say check them on a semi-regular basis because this is your opportunity to really engage people. But next question I got, I think I got this question actually at Purchase last time I was there. But once I find Mark, what do I do? Because I connected with him and he's worthwhile. How do I find other people that Mark knows and might be of value? So that's what I wanted to show you here under the advanced people search. Now, if I go here to all filters, this is doing a search for people. Now watch what I do here. I go in here and I'm putting Wendy on the spot again. I'm going to put in Wendy, if I spell it right. And what this is actually going to do is going to allow me to do an advanced search of Wendy's connections. So I go down here and I look for people who she's connected to, and I'm putting in motion picture and film. And this worked before, and hopefully it'll work again. I click apply, boom. Here's somebody in the New York City area who's connected to Wendy, who works as a writer-producer somewhere. Now again, this may or may not be the connection you're looking for, but if you find people who are in positions of power or influence, chances are they're connected to other people like that. Like I say, birds of a feather flock together. So if you find people who have that kind of influence on information, try to connect with them as well. Do those searches, search those people and utilize their profiles to expand your network out and engage more people. Okay, any questions about that? Because there's one last thing I want to show you about engaging people on a regular basis.
I am checking. They're quite not about that though, so I think we can get to these questions.
So I think one of the important things that you need to do on a regular basis, and I say daily, is see who's viewed your profile. Now, I actually have a premium profile, so I can see 90 days worth of people have viewed it. Generally, this is going to default to the last 5 people who have viewed my profile. And this is very, very important because, look, anybody who's viewed my profile has shown interest in me. I always follow these up. So you'll see afterwards here, I might connect with David and send him a personalized message. Thank you for viewing my profile. How can I be of assistance? Something like that. Because this is an opportunity to see people who showed interest in you. And if someone showed interest in you, it's an important thing to follow up. One of the questions I always get is it worthwhile to buy a premium account? And my answer to that generally is, for most students, and you're not using the recruiter platform, you're just generally doing general kinds of job search on LinkedIn, it is not worthwhile unless you're getting 10, 15, 20 profile views a day. Because then potentially you can miss some of these. And these could be valuable things to miss. But if you're only getting 5 a day and you check it twice a day, you're not going to really miss anybody. And that's a great way to make sure that you're able to connect with and engage with people who have shown interest in your particular profile. So I think people should do this on a regular basis. There was a change to LinkedIn a couple of years ago. It used to say how many people viewed this in the last day. Now it shows you how many people viewed it in the last 90 days, which isn't as valuable. But I would check this on a regular basis. People showed interest in you are people you want to be engaging with. That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
That's pretty much the presentation. So I want to get some of the other questions people have.
Okay, so I'm just going to start from the top, Chaim, and
Great.
so somebody had asked for the headline. I notice a lot of people capitalize certain words that normally are not. What is the proper way of writing your headline in terms of syntax?
So that's a great question. I think, it depends on the field and also depends what it looks like. I think you want to, when you're making errors anywhere, you realize that people are going to get very technical and get worried about that. What I do advise, and this is actually a super hack I usually don't give in my first session, you actually see here on my LinkedIn profile that this is bold. And there's a trick to doing that. What you need to do is find the Unitext code converter, and that will give you the opportunity. Let's see, Unicode text converter. Sorry, and that'll give you the opportunity to put things in bold, which I think is better than cap. I go in here. I'm able to put some information in here, then cut and paste that in there. One warning about this is that it doesn't work perfectly for all systems. I have a Kindle Fire. Don't ask me why I have a Kindle Fire. It was cheap on Amazon Prime Day. This part actually doesn't show up because I have that under that kind of Unicode text. Also, people potentially who have vision impairment that are actually having systems read might be able to read that as well. So that's something that's very important to consider when you're doing that, but I think that is better than doing the capitalization.
Thank you. Somebody asked, how do you change your email address that you're registered with? So if you want to change your
You need to go
account
into your
email.
public, you need to go into your settings. Your settings will be over here. I'm not going to do this right now because it's going to take me into a place where I have to sign in. You go to your settings and privacy. One of them is actually the ability to set or add a new email address and set your primary email address. So you have the opportunity to have multiple email addresses affiliated with your profile and set the one that is your primary email address, which might be your Gmail address or your purchase media address, whichever is the one you use more frequently.
Thank you. I feel like you answered this, but just somebody was
No,
asking
glad
about, where you were showing them before where you could upload the resume. They were just saying it's a very large file. Is there a size limit there?
So if you go to SlideShare, let's see if SlideShare is still on the waffle board. I'm not sure if it is. Yeah, it is here, so on the waffle board, as we call it. If you go to SlideShare, you'll have all the information there. SlideShare is owned by LinkedIn, so they usually behave pretty well and pretty good together. As long as you can upload it there, you can put the URL right in over here, and generally it does a great preview because, again, it works really well because it's owned by the same company. So that's what I usually recommend as opposed to Box or something else. I've had times where Box and LinkedIn had a fight, or Bitly and Box had a fight. So when they're owned by the same company, it makes it a lot easier to do.
Thank you. Somebody had asked, if you put a portfolio of artwork on your featured page, does it become public domain and can people use the artwork for free?
So I'm not an intellectual rights lawyer. My inclination, I would speak to a lawyer, but my inclination is, for me, for example, this is my content. I consider this that it belongs to me, it belongs to Turo. So I don't believe anybody can just copy it just because I posted it there. That's my belief. But if you're really concerned about it, talk to an intellectual property lawyer. But my thought, no, because it's still my stuff. But again, I don't want to give legal advice. So this should not be construed as legal advice.
Thank you. So this somebody was asking about adding something for free, but didn't refer to what it was. So whoever asked that, if you want to write that question again and just let us know what you were referring to. Oh, right. And then the question that Rachel had before is, I think this was when you were showing your public profile, if you could just to see
Gotcha.
how you removed the sections and they disappeared and then they came back.
I got it. So let's go to the public profile and URL. And if I scroll down over here, this gives me the opportunity to choose what I do or do not include in this. And you see here, and this is funny, by the way, I said this to LinkedIn, they call this a summary, and over here it's called the About section now. Correct that. If I didn't want that showing up, the people viewing me from the outside, all I would need to do is click the show button to off, and that disappears in real time. And the idea here is the information that tells you the best for each particular person.
Perfect. Thank you. And then somebody asked, can you delete things from your activity log on LinkedIn?
So you can, and you actually go back to them and delete them. My philosophy, if you've actually posted something, and generally that question has to do with, well, I posted something that I really, really don't like. Nothing really really disappears on social media. There's always potentially there, but yeah, you might save your posts and potentially delete the posts. So if I want to go back to a post I made earlier over here, let's go to posts. Come on now. I should be able to do, I believe delete is one of these, delete posts right now. Delete it again. Is it possible that somebody has it saved in their computer cache? 100%. But you can actually delete that actual thing from there if you wanted to.
Thank you. The next question is it good to have your LinkedIn profile in different languages?
So if you actually were looking for jobs and people will be looking for your LinkedIn profile, and having it in another language would be beneficial to you 100%. I'm not an expert, obviously, on foreign language LinkedIn profiles. I only speak English, but definitely you could actually add that in different languages as well. And again, if that's the market that's looking for you and where you're looking, I would definitely consider doing that and making sure that it's actually also a winning profile in whatever language you're going to be including. Here is where you're able to add the profile in another language. I haven't done this. Again, I don't speak any language besides English, but yeah, that's where your potential recruiters are looking 100%.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is, should you list your entire professional history on your LinkedIn profile, or should you only list jobs that are relevant to the positions that you're
A
looking
great
for?
question. So my personal philosophy on this is different than a resume, and some of the LinkedIn consultants disagree about this. But you'll see here if I go down on my profile, I even have my college job up over here, where basically I was schlepping furniture. It's way down over here. Cashier, hauling furniture and doing those things. To me, it just shows people that I was working hard while I was in school more years ago than I care to admit. But, and what are the chances that people are going to actually see this? Very, very small, because most people aren't going that far down on my profile and clicking that see more button. But you know something? It's there. If somebody's really interested in me and it was a positive experience, I don't see any reason not to include that, because that's an opportunity for them to see a little bit of a broader picture of who you are. And it's not like a resume where they're going to be like, oh, well, gosh, why is this 2 pages? Why is this 4 pages?
That's great. Thank you. The next question is, if you have real estate that you're managing while you're doing other work, how would you list that? So I think like a secondary, something
Doing
you're
other
doing
work, you want to,
secondary.
I think that'd be a good place to post do you want to post that to include that as showing that's something you're currently doing, or just to advertise the fact that you're selling the real estate?
I think it's more like if this is more like a second job you have, or a second experience that you have, but you have a main kind of
What I
career
have here,
going
you see
on.
here, my social media consultant job, I
Right.
have a separate job. And I include that in the information there as well. And it's also a current job. If I wanted to, I'm not going to do this right now. I can move this up to the top, so that would be my primary job here on LinkedIn. Now, I did actually set up my actual company page. Usually for small businesses, and this is the business section that I give, company pages aren't worth that much because nobody looks at them, but it does allow you to sync with your logo, which is why I created a company page. But yeah, I would put that there. And I don't believe real estate management is one of the services that's available over here, but you can look and see if it's one of the providing services.
Oh, okay. That's great. Thank you. And then somebody was asking, I guess I saw something called the skill quiz. What is the skill quiz?
Yeah. So skill quiz down here on your skills is the opportunity to get a badge on your LinkedIn profile that demonstrates you have particular skills. I'm not a big fan of badging because I don't know how much they actually mean to anybody. But I can go in here and say, I want to take a skill quiz on multiple choice quiz on any of these. It'll be Acrobat. And if I pass that test and get the results, I can put a badge on my profile that says LinkedIn has assessed that I have passed this quiz and therefore I have skills in that particular. And it's a very limited number of things. Like I'd love for them to LinkedIn one here, but there isn't. It's mostly technical stuff outside of that. So the skill quiz will give you the opportunity, if you pass, to put that badge on your profile.
That's great. Thank you. Since somebody asked, should GPA be displayed in the education section? Also, should the year you graduate be displayed?
So I think GPA, if it's a good GPA, anything above, a 3.5, generally I think is worthwhile to include, especially when you're a current student. I don't have mine up there because it was so long ago. But I think that definitely, if it sells you in a good way, I think it's something worth doing. And you'll see here, it can also be things you did, because I was a very active student as an undergraduate, the student senate, chairman of different groups. So those kinds of things can be very valuable. What I advise people against doing is putting up that you got a 95 on your economics midterm, microeconomics midterm, or something like that. Because if you're going to putting up test scores, it'd be something like CPA pass exam or the actuarial exam or something like that. Things that are impressive, that sell you in the best way, 100%. If it sells you, go for it.
Great, thank you. Then somebody asked, what do you look for to have the best photo for your wall? So I just don't know if that's referring to
That's probably referring to the one in the
that's what I
background.
imagine. Yeah.
So a couple of things here. First of all, you'll see this is a wider shot. So you want to make sure that the picture is a wider shot photo. So you might need to actually to take it or have it done professionally. The other thing you want to look for is, I'd like having people looking at me or looking at you. So if you have something where you're performing, and performance is one of the things I know that's very big at SUNY Purchase, and you're up there and people are watching and you can show that, that could be a very valuable kind of thing. Because again, it shows that people are interested in what you're doing. I've seen people who are in computer technology who just put up the ones and the zeros or some kind of computer security stuff up there, pictures, and all those things I think are better than the sort of standard general one. The only other thing to keep under consideration is that your profile picture is going to show up over here. So if you have something very important over here, you don't want to have something very important over here, because it's going to get blocked by your actual profile picture.
Great, thank you. And then somebody asked, remind me how I can turn off anyone from viewing my profile while I'm updating.
Okay, great. So if you go back down here to where your work experience is, here, share with your network. Now, I have this default set to off. I think that's the better way to do it because, again, if you make a small change and I just change one word in my profile for Turo, people start sending me messages, congratulations on your new job at Turo. So my default is to keep this off. I only put it on if, for example, I were to get a job working somewhere else, and then I would want to share that. But it's just on or off, just like that. And then always, 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 when you finish something, click save. If you don't click save, it didn't happen.
And then you could, when you said that you could have that set in your main settings as well, that it's always off to share.
That's it, but you actually do it, but it's easier here. Yeah, you can actually go.
Okay.
There's a lot of things in privacy and settings that you can do that have overarching things, but I think you're better off doing it here. It's just a little bit easier to get to than looking through the privacy and settings is a little bit more of a complicated thing.
The next question is, is there a good reference documentation while working on my site? I don't know if that's referring to just.
Are you looking for something that'll help them do what we talked about today?
Maybe. So whoever asked that question,
well, I would point to this.
Okay.
This is my college student's guide to LinkedIn. Their profile, you can get it. It's slightly dated because the open candidates changed slightly since then, but about 99% of it is still very accurate. Plus, I believe the video of this is going to be available that you're going to be able to utilize.
Yes.
People so they can go through it and slow things down and look at whatever part of it is more valuable to them.
Thank you. And then somebody just asked, should I include a CV in the featured section?
A CV, they said?
Like a resume or CV, yeah.
Oh, a CV. Well, I do.
Yeah.
If you have a professional resume, I think you definitely should include that, especially if you're looking for a job. Again, it gives people the opportunity to see that it's a resume. And if you have somebody who wants to download it off a SlideShare and send it to a person who is not particularly adept at LinkedIn, some the opportunity to do that.
That's great. And then somebody asked, would scholarships be worth putting on your LinkedIn?
If they're impressive scholarships, I think, scholarships that are need-based, generally not. But if you got a Dean Scholarship for academic performance, 100% I would put that on there.
And the next question is, do you recommend any productivity tips?
Yeah, I think it's very important to engage on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is only as valuable as you make it. So if you have a profile and it just sits there, it isn't really doing much. So I think you want to be posting content that demonstrates your expertise at least 3 times a week, and try to engage with those visual arts people. I gave that example before. People, when I searched for visual arts, try to engage with people that are using the terminology that's being used in your profession, because that's how you're going to build yourself up a reputation as an expert in your field. And that's under the content here.
Great. Should I get to the next question?
Sure, please.
Okay. When people reach out about positions on LinkedIn, how do you prove the legitimacy, I guess, of those contacts?
So you always have to be careful. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people on LinkedIn who are not honest actors. Generally, what I do is, first you check their profile to make sure their profile looks legitimate. I got somebody, for example, that sent me a profile connection request yesterday that claimed to be a recruiter at a major company, but she only had like 15. This is probably not legitimate, because if they've been there for that long, they're going to have more connections than that. They also were missing, vital information on their profile. So you want to look at it, but always, whatever you do on social media, be careful. There are a lot of people out there who really have bad intent and try to do things that are trying to steal your data or get you to sign up for things. So you have to be very, very careful. Worst case scenario, Google the person's name and see if it comes up on the actual company site as well. That's a great way to double check and make sure that it's legit.
That's great. Thank you. Next question. We only have a few more left.
Sure,
in the
please.
featured section, what if you have both? I guess they're asking, they have 2 different versions of a resume. They have a resume and then a fuller CV. And they have both, depending if they're applying the industry versus an academic job. So would they put both up?
One of the things LinkedIn doesn't do well is show multiple abilities or multiple jobs or multiple different kinds of expertise. So I generally think, unless you're really, really targeting towards that academic side, go with the more general, because it'll relate to more people. And if you put multiple up there, chances are people are going to get confused and not see it and understand it. So that's one of the things LinkedIn does not do well. It doesn't allow you to show that you have multiple expertise in multiple professions well. So I would go, unless you're really targeting that specific one, in which case that would be fine. I would generally go with the more general one than the more specific one.
Thank you. The next question is, where can you share sample writing clips?
So I think you could actually share them right here. That's an opportunity to share them under feature. And the way to do that is actually, you could actually do a post. Let me just show you how to do a post here. There's a couple ways to do this. Scroll up to the top here. Okay, start a post. And here's an opportunity for me to put in information. You see here, I can add a document, which could actually be a PDF or a Word document with my writing sample and post that writing in there. I'm not gonna hit this right now because I have my private documents and student resumes on my computer, so I can't show you that information. That's one way to do it and post that. Another way is to actually write an actual article on LinkedIn, which is right over here. And this takes you the opportunity to publish an article on LinkedIn, which generally I advise people to do if they have high level stuff. It's not just, regular stuff that you'd be posting, but more advanced level kind of stuff that really shows your expertise in some particular area.
Thank you. And then the last question I have right now is, can you just demo where you would follow a particular employer and then how you could find alumni who work for that employer? I think maybe you showed that before, but just to
Okay,
show that
yeah,
again.
there's really two ways to do that. So you actually go to companies here, and this is going to give you the opportunity to search for the companies. So you can choose one here. We can choose another one. Let's go with, let's see, actors meeting. That's a group actually. Company. There we go. Company entertainment. And a couple of things I can do here is if I go down to people, and I don't know if this is going to work because I don't know if we have any purchase alumni. I'm assuming they would. But if I go here where they studied, and I don't think purchase is one of the options, so I click add. This will let me know if there's somebody at that particular company. I don't know if this is going to work because I didn't try it. Did it come up with one? There we go, 23. There we are. There's 23 people that work there that are actually from Purchase College. So that's one of the easy way to do it. So you could also do it through the alumni section. So if you actually go into Purchase's actual page, try to go back here if I can. You can actually do search by company on the alumni page. It makes it sometimes a little bit easier to find. Now LinkedIn is just getting annoyed at me. Let's see if we can try that again. It's the danger of a live demo that like that happened. I go to purchase here, and I go down to alumni, and I should be able to do it by company right here. Put that right in there. Put in the name of the company, and where they work is something that shows up here as well. So I could just say, oh, I'm looking for somebody who works at Morgan Stanley. Boom. That'll show you those alumni. Again, very important. When you find those people, do not click connect here. Click on Sarah's picture and then have some way to connect with her specifically and send a personalized message. Other questions?
Let's see. I think one just popped up.
Oh, great.
It was from Wendy. Thank you. Thank you, Chaim. Once again, a terrific intro to LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for the
Chaim.
opportunity.
I can use my voice now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, Wendy. How was that?
Great. I think that was a lot of value for a lot of people. Thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. I guess this is our 4th or 5th time, I think. So I've been very happy.
Yes.
And I just want everyone to know, that if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or shoot me a message on LinkedIn, even better, actually. I'll be happy to answer those questions for you. It's always great being back with you. And everyone, please stay well. I know these are very difficult times, but, just keep everyone in their thoughts and prayers.
And Chaim, thank you again
well.
so much for joining us. And thank you so much to all the participants. I just wanted to let you know that we have another webinar coming up next week. We have a speaker, Natalie King, who's going to be talking about managing your career success. That'll be the same time next week. So if you have any questions, just let us know. And thank you everyone for joining.